Hi, welcome back to the Spirit's Path. This is Dee, and today's tarot card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot Deck is the Court card of the Queen of Vessels in the Salmon. And we haven't seen this card in quite some time. It was actually second from the bottom. There's one card we haven't seen in a very long time, and hopefully that comes up, but we'll see. So right now you've got two queens back to back, and we talked yesterday around that Queen of Stones, the bear, with the practicality, the materialism, and security, but protecting everything that you have, okay? And, as you walked out of the cave, face your fears, the hooded man guided you, you walked into this celebration, you walked out in the celebration and the fox was with you, that Knight of Bows asking you where you're seizing the opportunity. And he's kind of, drifted off to the wayside now, but you still have the Lynx, which is the Page of Stones, and then the bear walking with you as well. And as you're walking by, walking down the path, and you're ruminating about what's happened here in the last week, you're walking by the river. And, the big message that came to me today when I was, thinking about it, and I was kind of surprised I even thought about it, it's not too often that the two queens go back to back. And the vision that I saw was a bear in a river trying to catch that salmon. All right, so here you've got the Queen of Stones trying to catch the Queen of Vessels. All right, and the reason that the salmon are going upstream is because they're going there to lay their eggs. So when the spring happens, they hatch and they come downriver. So they're going back to a fertile nesting ground. Okay. And, the salmon will, even though the bear is waiting for them, to eat, the salmon is pretty much sacrificing themselves to get back to where they need to be. Okay. Now this Queen of Vessels, this salmon, she's she's deeply caring, she's honest and generous, and she likes to bring a lot of joy. Okay. Now, it's not surprising because Vessels is all about emotion. So, here she's the queen of emotions. She's the queen of joy. She's the queen of happiness. She's the queen of, all the high energy, vibrations that are out there. Ecstasy, the Five of Vessels comes to mind. Rebirth, and, which is the Eight of Vessels. And then you got there's another re in there as well, the Six of Vessels. Okay, reunion. Right? So there's a lot of joy that's in this aspect. And as, the queen is traveling up this river, she's looking for an opportunity to, drop her eggs. All right. And to nurture, those eggs into a situation to where they can grow, later on down, in the year. Okay. And, as I said, she's, the salmon is all about self-sacrifice. If this is a person that's in your life, okay, it's somebody that's going to be tenderhearted. They're going to be kind. They're going to be very intuitive because, the emotional piece of this is, the psychic piece as well, the unconscious. All right. They're going to be empathetic to your needs, just as she's empathetic to the needs of, laying her eggs, upstream in a river, and they really are, as a person, one of the best confidants you can talk to. Most of the queens are great confidants. You can tell a lot too, but because this is, you can talk to her very emotionally, and she's going to be very understanding and sympathetic and empathetic, to those needs that you have. If this is an aspect, okay, again, it's going to be that emotionally mature person that you're talking with, and they're going to be impressionable upon you. They're going to be, take you along the side and just say, what, everything's going to be all right. You just need to think, don't get so emotional about it, and just, understand the situation that you're in. Now, if this is an event, it's about, comforting you. It's about, talking to you about your dreams and visions. All right. Just like the vision I had, when thinking about this card, here the queen is climbing into that river, right? Looking for that nesting ground. And she's got to get by the Queen of Stones, who's offering that security. Okay, and if you think about the metaphor there, okay, If you don't get eaten by the bear and you get past the bear's not going to go chasing after you. The bear's going to wait for others to come upstream. So once you get past that bear, now you're going to have that protection. Now you're going to have that security. Now you're going to have that stability. All right? It's getting past the emotional aspect of getting up that stream. So, the two questions that the Queen of Vessels, the Salmon, ask you is, what is enchanting you? Or what do you need to devote yourself to? Here we've talked about meeting your fears, okay? And I really do feel, and I talked about it yesterday, that this is more of a spiritual aspect of your journey that's going on, okay? You face those fears spiritually. You had the hooded man come down the cave, showing you that light of hope, and you embraced it. And now you can see, you're celebrating life. You're celebrating the spirit, which should be, because, this is the fall season. You're celebrating that harvest of what's going on, with these gals dancing around the bonfire. And as you celebrate life in the journey of life, the journey of your spirit, okay, we're starting to fall into, and if you remember the World Tree, it's got all 4 seasons. We're falling into that fall aspect where things are dying off, right? Flowers are going back in, and most people will take those flowers and rip them out because, if the bulbs are still in the ground, they're going to bloom again. All right, the leaves are falling. The leaves are changing here in the Northern Hemisphere. All right, so things are going into hibernation mode. Okay, and just like the Queen of Stones, the bear, they're going to go into hibernation mode as well, making sure that they've got enough, in their system with meats and salmon and things of that nature that they can hibernate during the wintertime. And the salmon's doing, hey, I'm going to lay these eggs and then I'm going to go back downstream. And if I survive, I survive. And it's a sacrifice of giving life to that springtime, which is, the word that keeps coming to mind is eternal. But, when spring blossoms, so does life itself. Everything starts picking up, the pace, to get through the summer and everything like that. So, what's enchanting you this fall? We've got the enchantment of Halloween coming on, where, in a couple of weeks, the veil between, this life or, this realm and the other, the after realm is very closely linked. Okay. And, you'll start hearing more and more of that from other astrologers and horoscope, readers and tarot readers and stuff like that. And it's that opportunity to talk with spirit, to talk with those that have moved on, to remember them, right? Because, like I said, as we get into the fall and things start dying away, you're going to start seeing the cycle of life start appearing more and more and more. And with that, people are going to be bundled up, and, people are going to be within their homes. They're not going to be out and about because the weather's cooler, especially where I'm at. Sun's going to go down a lot sooner. All right. And that's where you have to have that, not get into that depressed look, not to get into that, that gloomy atmosphere, to stay active, get yourself involved in things so that when spring comes around, you're more active, right? You're not always bundled up in the same, cave facing that fears. You're moving forward and moving toward that, to that lamp, to give you that warmth, to give you that hope, based on what the hooded man is. And then where do you need to devote yourself to? Continue devoting yourself on this spiritual journey that you're on. Continue doing the things that are going to elevate your higher self, all right, to a new energy level, to where you don't have to give in to the naysayers and the Debbie Downers and things on that nature. You want to keep things light, and energetically high, right? You don't want to be in the dumps or anything like that, because then that's just that little needle getting in and just putting that negative aspect on the day. And, and it's amazing. I remember a teacher, my communications teacher in college, she had this pure bowl of water, and she put 1 drop of black dye in it, and the whole thing went black. And she had to put, I don't know, another, let's just say another quart, another, 3/4 of a gallon of water back into this bowl to eliminate all the black dye. So it goes to show you that just one little negative comment, right? One little negative seed, you know, can ruin your day. And it's going to take a whole bunch of other, you know, situations, you know, to neutralize, you know, that negative comment, you know. And, you know, the other thing in society, everybody remembers, you know, your miscue. They don't look at the good things. They look at the mistake and they focus on that mistake. You know, that's what makes people miserable, right? Because they're always focused on the mistake and not the successes. You know, and you talk to some older people, just getting out of bed is a success. Going to the store is a success, all right? If you can go to work with a great attitude, that's a success. And if you come home with that great attitude, you know, that's a success. So, you know, take the successes with the failures, take the success, you know, the positive with the negative, but have more positivity aspects than negative aspects, right? And, you know, as you do so, your higher self elevates, that energy elevates, and you just remain whole. You just remain connected to spirit, to the universe, you know, to be divinely guided. So that's today's card of the day, the Queen of Vessels and the Salmon. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, share with others, and give me a thumbs up. And this is D for a Spirit's Path. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care, God bless, and stay safe, everybody.